most of the members in our club are concerned about this. And I think most of the attendees today, that's why you're here, is because you're concerned about this. We've got some of the leaders in events and event planning in Oklahoma City on this meeting. Just real quick, and you saw probably on the schedule, Graham Colton, if you could wave, you're from the Jones Assembly. Emily Duncan, if you would give a wave. Emily is working with the Greater Chamber of Oklahoma City, and many member events with them as well. Alexia, I'm going to mispronounce your last name. Goetzinger?
Goetzinger.
There we go. Is from OVAC, Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. They just had their annual fundraiser 12 by 12 virtually, so I'm excited to hear about that. Lydia Hopkins and I work together at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. She's in charge of event planning there, if you would give a wave. And then Stephen Tyler, I didn't see when I first logged on, but my view's a little weird, from the Tower Theater should be with us as well. So in any event, I'm really excited to jump in today. I have a couple questions, kind of general things that I'd like to learn more about. For the rest of the members in our club, I'd like to have a Q&A at the end, but because we have so many people on the Zoom today, I think it's easiest if all of the questions get dropped in the chat, and then I'll read them off at the end. So if you've got any questions, stay on mute. I'll read through the chat when we're done with our script. So just to start out, for our speakers for today, would you go ahead, tell us your name, your organization, your position, kind of like I just listed out, but tell us a little bit, more behind the scenes of what's going on. How long have you worked in the event field? How long have you been with your particular organization, and anything else significant you'd like to share in introduction? Let's see, Graham, we will start out with you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Graham Colton. I am an operating partner of the Jones Assembly for the last 4 years. I'm a singer-songwriter and born in Oklahoma City, moved away, went on tour, and returned in 2007. So I feel like I've been in the event business since 2000, just from an artist perspective, but have been booking, promoting concerts and events now for about 7 years, but I'm happy to be here, and hope I give some good feedback here.
Thank you so much. Emily, let's move on to you.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. My current role is membership manager. I've been in that role for about 5 years. Grew up in Oklahoma, been here my whole life, so that's about it.
Thank you. Let's see, Alexa.
Hi, I'm Alexa Goetzinger, and I am the Associate Director for the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition, commonly referred to as OVAC. And I have worked in the nonprofit arts sector for 4 years. My previous role was at ArtSpace, and while I was there, we started the Steamroller Festival, so I'm very familiar with events. And although I've been in my current role here at OVAC for a little less than a year, and it has been a year, so all that I thought I knew about events has changed, and I'm willing to share everything that I've learned.
Thank you for being here. Lydia.
Hi guys, I'm Lydia Hopkins. I work at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. I am the manager of meeting and event services. I've been in my current role for about 4 years, but I've done event planning and things along those lines for about 15 years now. Excited to be here.
You are definitely one of the big event spaces, so we're excited to hear about you. Stephen Tyler is maybe running a little bit late. Hopefully he'll pop in a little bit later, but we'll just move on right ahead. So as we're all aware, as you've alluded to in your introductions, events have not been able to operate the same way that we previously planned them. We've had to really think about them differently in the time of COVID. However, forced change often begs further creativity, and I know you all are very creative people. And so the most popular question of 2020 to start us out, how have you pivoted in operations of how events are held? Let's see, Alexa, I would love to hear from you.
Okay. Well, we had to pivot hard and fast because I don't know if you remember March, but it started out in a way where we were having curatorial talks where 57 people would come, and then towards the end, our momentum exhibition for artists 30 and under was supposed to happen on March 20th, and it did not. So within 2 days, we were having lots of talks on the floor and taking momentum to slow momentum and then to e-momentum, where people only saw the show virtually as we were on lockdown. So then we were kind of worried because we lost a lot of revenue in ticket sales and art sales. And so we had to really think about the future of our programming. After that, in June, we established a completely new pandemic related program called the OK Art Crawl, which I spearheaded starting in my dining room with Crystal Brewer, our executive director, who's on the call, and then Jennifer Scanlon, who is an independent curator that many of you might also know. And so that program actually came out of discussions. Artists in our community had completely lost their festivals, their exhibitions, their workshops, summer camps, any traveling residencies. I mean, it just evaporated into thin air. And so with that program, we had over 240 artists that signed up in 33 cities across the state. And we were able to facilitate that by providing a Google map and promoting the artists, and people could drive around and see kind of a statewide art show. And that actually generated over $40,000 of income that went directly back to artists. And so going into July, into our annual members meeting, which we held all through Zoom, that normally is a big meeting, kind of another party that we like to have with our members, they decided that they wanted us to continue doing that. So now I get to do all of that work every year. But I'm really excited because that goes aligned with our mission, and we loved doing it and helping artists make money. So that is kind of a silver lining that we made up in the middle of the pandemic, and now we're going to continue. And then after our virtual members meeting, we just came off of 12 by 12, which after momentum, we really pivoted and we were like, we're not going to expect having our big giant party. This isn't going to be over by the fall. And so on Friday, we established beforehand with Allied Arts using the same system, the same app called Handbid. And so that's what we used for our virtual auction. And what we learned is that the community really still does want to support the arts in this time, and that people will buy art without ever seeing it in person. And so we're kind of having a high week right now at OVAC because we surpassed all of our goals with that fundraiser. And if anybody has questions about what we did and how we did it, Audrey Kaminsky is on the call too. My whole team's here today. And she is actually the Handbid queen. So if you have any questions, we can set up a call about that if you're interested in doing something similar with your organization. And then looking ahead, we are already changing our programs. We are changing momentum from, again, that big, awesome party that it normally is for artists 30 and under. We're going to do more of an exhibition format so people can view the artwork safely, wearing masks and social distancing properly. So that is the state of events in terms of OVAC and how we handled everything that's been happening.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Emily and Lydia, you all both observe events in a slightly different way. Obviously, the Chamber of Oklahoma City does host their events, but you also attend a lot of member events. Lydia, you are booking community events in the space, but the museum also has their own signature events. I would love to hear from both of you on the same side of that perspective, what you're observing and how your organizations are moving and accommodating right now in the time of COVID. Lydia, let's start with you.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like with our client events, we've definitely gone to a more hybrid approach with everything we're doing. We actually have hosted about 4 events since COVID started, and they've gone amazing. The clients have gotten really great fundraising abilities from it. They are doing streaming for part of it. So they do a live stream to all of their members or anyone who didn't feel comfortable attending in person. And then as far as in person, they have been doing a less capacity of the room. So our largest ballroom can hold 1,000. most of our events are doing 40% of that capacity, so 400 and under. And we are able to diagram the tables where they are socially distanced and 6 feet apart all the way around. And we're even taking it a step farther with seating and registration, where it's organizations that work together that are already in a space together, and families and spouses sitting together at the same table and where they're comfortable with their surroundings. As far as the major museum events for the year, we have gone virtual, very much like what Alexa has been doing with her organization. People will buy art even if they don't see it. So that's been wonderful. And it's great that we still have the supporters at the museum and the momentum behind it all right now.
Awesome. Emily.
Yeah, so our events, obviously we moved to 100% virtual, and we've decided to continue doing that through at least the rest of 2020, and then we'll evaluate closer towards the end of the year. Initially, I think the entire chamber was just so focused on being in crisis mode, since we are a member organization, and all of our members are businesses. We were like, what are the resources? What are the resources? You know, what do these businesses need? We have to keep these businesses afloat, even if they have to be closed right now. So initially, all of our events shifted to more of a information, question and answer, resource finding focused. You know, now that we're not back to normal, obviously, but now that we're shifted into kind of the next phase of this pandemic, you know, most of our events, we have resumed some of our regular events still on through Zoom, but we've been able to, you know, do a lot of our events have a networking component, and I feel like that's really been the hardest part to recreate. We've utilized some of the breakout rooms and things like that, and we are seeing some success with that, but I think that's kind of been our struggle, the hardest part to recreate from an in-person event. So I'm hoping to get some good ideas from everyone for that today.
Absolutely. I know a lot of us are looking for those answers right now too. Stephen Tyler was able to pop on, and Stephen and Graham, you two both have models that are a little bit more national in scale, since you have touring shows traditionally before COVID coming through. So we've talked about, you know, Alexa brought us, what does the scope look on a nonprofit and fundraising level? Emily and Lydia talked to us about what's going on in the metro and maybe even statewide. Stephen and Graham, I'm hoping you can talk to us a little bit more about the climate you're seeing as far as booking bands on a national scale. Stephen, let's start with you. Could you go ahead and just give us a quick intro? How long have you been with the Tower Theater? Anything else you'd like to say in introduction, and then move into that question?
Sure. Stephen Tyler, I'm one of the managing partners, sort of the day-to-day operations person here at Tower. I have been such since we opened in 2017. So yeah, that's sort of who I am. I'm part of the ownership group of the business of Tower, so very familiar with the impacts that this has had on the actual business operations, as well as just kind of what it has translated to in reality. What we are seeing and hearing mostly from the national level, especially when it comes to the concerts, not speaking for Graham, obviously, but from our side of things, is a continued push back. We had some shows that were postponed into the first quarter of 2021 that are starting to push into Q4. Most of the mutterings that we're hearing is gatherings on the scale that we were used to probably aren't coming back to us in 2021. And I feel like most of the artists and agents kind of tell us the same story. We have begun some socially distanced models here at Tower. You've seen the Bonnie Bishop show, and we've got Bricks in the Wall this weekend, and some other things that we're working on. But the reality of that is we were working in a range of bands that drew 500 to 1,000 or beyond, to put into a room now where at most we can fit about 200 seats, you know, keeping everything distanced and safe like that. So we've essentially shifted our focus in the industry to smaller bands and smaller acts that can do solo or do those sorts of things. And I think that's the only thing we're going to see for the time being, at least in our scale. You're going to see a lot of stuff go outdoors. That seems to be the consensus that I'm hearing, is that 2021 is going to be mostly outdoors. And I'm sure that that's something that it impacts Graham and the Jones, considering they even have that outdoor component out there. So I'd be interested to even hear from him on that side, if that's what they're hearing as well, and how they're adapting to it. But for the time being, we have adjusted the internal model. We're going to be very controlling on our protocols and things, and just kind of going forward with what we can get. But that is why you still see us heavily advocating for support at the federal level, and you see that energy still at the federal level. If nationally the story was really that different, I don't think you'd see a concerted effort on something like Save Our Stages, because there are literally thousands of venues like us across the country that are all hearing the same story. So to me, the national scope of this for us is 2021 is kind of off the table already, for the most part. And we're looking at how to survive that year, hopefully with support of something like Save Our Stages. And in the meantime, hybrid models and everything you all are talking about, we've adapted to, and our events team has adapted to, our in-house production team has dove into live streaming and all that stuff. So we're doing all of those things in-house, so that to try to make it easier for people wanting to do smaller events or needing the hybrid component to come to us and find a solution that they don't have to piece out amongst too many different contractors.
Graham, can we turn it over to you on the same subject?
Yeah, Stephen said it great. Obviously, this is an unimaginable time for the concert touring business, one that I've been a part of since 2000, as I mentioned, from the artist side. So my perspective is really multifaceted, because I always look at it from both sides. I have kind of the artist perspective, which has been tremendously difficult, and then from the venue perspective, it's unimaginable. The Jones, as Stephen mentioned, is unique in that we don't operate like a traditional music venue. We are able to do things under our roof that is different. We are almost nearly a 24/7 restaurant, event space, concert venue, indoor, outdoor, upstairs, downstairs. So we have our, advantages to pivot, and we've got challenges, because in order to do everything that we need to do under one roof, it takes an army to keep the lights on. So at first, it was definitely triage, and to just sort of almost kind of like, I've used the metaphor of, it's just like a giant ship that we had to, stop, and it almost took us what seemed like an entire month to sort of grasp what was even happening, and get all the wheels turned off. But kind of quickly, we realized that, in order for us to keep things moving in some direction, we needed to pivot, of course, towards things that were in our control, which was food, beverage. Our space allows us, not just because it's so large, but it allowed us to obviously put more emphasis, get people working again from the food side and the beverage side. We're able to social distance at the Jones. Unlike some places, we do have an outdoor component that was extraordinarily helpful, and I think gave people a sense of comfort. I think that's really carried us through. But from an event perspective and a concert perspective, absolutely unimaginable, and does not work, is not sustainable for us to solely rely on food and beverage to get us, as Stephen said, for another year. So we're going to continue to need support. I'm also involved in Scissortail Park. So going from this time last year, we had just produced the Kings of Leon concert, which was 28,000 people, to what we just did last week with John Fulbright at Scissortail Park, which was about 1,000 people, maybe 2,000, all socially distanced. We painted circles on the ground, hearts actually on the ground, to make sure that people behaved properly. So it's kind of a great snapshot of where we've come. in an outdoor setting like that. You have this amazing, beautiful park, which, you know, thankfully, in 365 days, we've been able to kind of show the difference of where we came from with Kings of Leon, that many people, to now what we're having to do creatively just to give people a sense of safety, comfort, but also just try to do something, you know. And that's so it's been both ends of the spectrum. It's been challenging, super scary, inspiring, all at the same time, to try to figure out how to keep it going. So I think and I think that some of the things, you know, from a concert perspective, of what people don't realize is, you know, the Jones Assembly, we need the Tower Theater. The Tower Theater needs the Jones Assembly. We need the venues in Dallas and Kansas City and Austin and all of these different venues. I mean, it does us no good if those venues don't make it, because, you know, it really is, as a city and as a market. And I'm sure Stephen can allude to this too. We were gaining so much traction as a place where people want to support live music. They were buying tickets, and it needs, we have to have all of these venues survive. It just, because the market can accommodate it. People are supporting it, and we have to have all different shapes and sizes of venues. And so, you know, kudos to the Tower Theater guys, Stephen and Chad, for all their activism with Save Our Stages and other things, because we have to have them. I think that's what might be lost on. It really is an ecosystem, and if we lose people along the way, not just in Oklahoma City, there won't be enough places for artists to route. And because we don't get concerts if Kansas City or you know, surrounding areas especially can't, I mean, those artists can't make money by just playing Oklahoma City and going back home. It doesn't work like that. So sorry, long-winded answer, but it's we're moving forward. It's a day-to-day process.
Yeah, no, there's no short answer to that question. So I
No,
appreciate all of you talking and giving some input there. And kind of like you were mentioning, that trickle down effect. I mean, it impacts Emily's members at the chamber and how they're able to operate their business, because they know an event is coming into town. Now they're having to think about that separately. Lydia and Alexa, the same way, being attractions and event places as well, but just in a different regard. I mean, all of that money is distributed differently when we don't have those big events that these venues provide. So it's a messy.
An interesting stat that I pulled out in the middle of all this was in 2019, we paid out 1,500 different 1099 contractors at Tower Theater. Some of those are musicians, but some of those are production companies, techs, videographers, photographers, event coordinators, caterers, all those things. I mean, and those 1,500 1099s equated to over $1 million in revenue going out to those contractors. So, I mean, we think about that kind of stuff a lot. Like, not only did sort of our spigot turn off, but we were upriver to a lot of other things. We talk about musicians and stuff a lot, but there's a lot of other people, from, I mean, janitorial services that we shut off in March and didn't turn back on until a week ago, to, I mean, everything else. So there's a big piece of this that's an economic driver, and why we've tried to inject that into our conversations about things like Save Our Stages, because this isn't just an industry that, you know, is a bunch of people who like try to make a living throwing parties every weekend. I mean, essentially that's what we do, but the reality of it is we're supporting so many different facets of the culture, and not only giving people a place to go, but giving some people income they don't have. And people don't think about that. There's a guy here in Oklahoma who is a laser guy, and he does lasers for everyone, Coachella, Justin Timberlake, and he lives in a little plot of land out in Jones, Oklahoma. And he posted his cash flow on Facebook the other day, and just like everybody else's in March, you know, he was doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in revenue in renting lasers to a concert industry and bringing that money back into Oklahoma, and suddenly his is off too, and everyone's turned off. So it's interesting to me to see how that, and to try to tell that story, and why things like the next round of Save Our Stages, which, by the way, I want to plug in here, has been included in the most recent version of the HEROES Act that is currently being discussed. So if anybody wants to like call their reps and put support towards the HEROES Act, that includes the Save Our Stages Act, and it also includes a restaurant industry backed support package to get money back into some of these more specific industries that are like these long-term hits like we are.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. We, at least maybe I'll just speak for myself, but I feel a lot of others feel this way. I feel a little helpless in this. You know, I don't know how to help. I want to help. All of the things you're talking about are very important to me and how I see Oklahoma City moving forward as a community. And so I appreciate you letting us know how we can support you. Besides shopping local, there are things we can do to make some lasting change. So thank you for that plug. That was actually, I was hoping, and if anyone else has ways we can help, please interject that, because we all want to support you. Just a quick raise of hands from our panelists. Who is doing any sort of live streaming as part of their event programs going forward? Okay, and so I would love to know, you know, obviously we're on Zoom right now. I've heard some pros and cons about doing live streaming meetings, you know, any other kind of event-centric things on Zoom. Could we just go around and say, you know, what you found to be most successful in that arena? If there's any other platforms you recommend, any other hacks that you found successful? Lydia, let's start with you.
Yeah, a lot of our clients have been doing private links through YouTube to live stream, just instead of putting it on their Facebook live feed, especially since right now with the hybrid events, there are those in-person components, and you have 100 people and they're sitting at a table and they're socially distanced, but they don't have their masks on, so it doesn't look the best to put on their Facebook live feed on their page. So I do know a lot of people that have been using YouTube, and that's really, besides that in Zoom, we really haven't gone any other channel with our streaming events.
Emily, what have you seen from the chamber and your members?
Initially, we started out with WebEx and then have moved to Zoom here at the chamber. We've also done a few teletown halls. Some of you all may have seen some of those with business leaders. Kendra Horn was on one. And I'm blanking on the company that we used for that. It was okay. There was no video though. But mostly we've just seen people using Zoom. I'd love to hear about any other platforms though that anyone suggests.
Stephen, what are you guys using?
Forgot I muted myself. We use a variety of things depending on the use case. We've done Zoom a lot. We push into these platforms through some higher level production equipment. So we're able to do multi-camera and on-screen graphics and stuff like even into Zoom calls. We've pushed those out to Facebook and other platforms. Again, it really depends on what it is. At Dead Center, we had an entire new platform that came through our ticketing provider that did all the video on demand and hosted some live streaming stuff, but then we also pushed it out to other channels. I think that's been something I've seen is you either kind of go one way or the other with it. You either have a very specific, like you're saying, a private YouTube link or a private Zoom call, or something that's behind some sort of a ticket wall of some kind, or you have a public thing, in which case send it everywhere. And there's a lot of platforms out there, from Vimeo to a company called Restream.io. There's a service called StreamYard out there, and they're all doing sort of the same kinds of things, where you could essentially have a Zoom type call. You have a little bit fancier polish on controlling titles and names and all that stuff, and they're designed to stream back out more easily than Zoom call. Zoom was originally designed to be a self-contained event. So I would not be afraid of any of that stuff and go look. They're all fairly inexpensive, $10, $20 a month kind of. But you know, being able to produce something and have it appear on your Facebook page, on your YouTube channel, on that private link, on whatever else, wherever else you want to go, or just recorded and embedded on your website later for playback. That would be my recommendation, is is sort of depending on the situation, either get it everywhere or control it. What we've done recently at Tower, we are actually pulling ourselves away from Facebook for a lot of reasons, some ideologically, others just annoyance. And really what we have done now is we produce our streams and we put them, our ticketing platform Eventbrite created a mechanism for an online event, so you can now embed your stream. So essentially what that did for us is that made a virtual event obtainable through the exact same mechanism as a physical event. If you go to our website and you find an event and you click on it and you buy a ticket, it's through Eventbrite, you're emailed, you're reminded by Eventbrite, and it's there and it's embedded. And so we've used that to start controlling ticketing and controlling access to the streams, because we were sort of casting a wide net and now we're really trying to hone in. And I think the value in that for us is that also allows us a collection point for who's coming to our streams. It's not a blanket, oh, 5,000 people on YouTube watched it for less than a minute. These are 50 people whose names, email addresses, phone numbers we got. And that translated to 49 views. So I know those people were like 100% engaged with it. And now when the next thing comes, I've got my email list started for them and I ping them right back. And so pushing them into our normal ecosystem of guests interacting with us and then marketing back to those guests, because I think that's going to be the most important thing to us going forward, is our email list and our active engaged customers are really who we need to be focused on right now. But because we're not going to be pulling in, Tower before was a nuclear bomb of trying to get people from the entire region to come to Tower in Oklahoma City, and we were marketing in Kansas City and Dallas and everywhere else. Well, none of that's a reality anymore. So now it's how do we maximize the people we know are here and who hopefully we have had in the building and had an experience and can trust us when we say, hey, we're doing it this way, or we're doing it safely this way, or watch this live stream because we're producing it, what you're going to expect from it.
Absolutely.
So I think leaning into your existing audience is very important right now.
Absolutely. And the loyal people are coming out of the woodworks, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Graham, are you all doing something similar at the Jones?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what the other panelists said. I couldn't have said it better. Have done a few creative things with some creative partners. I think for us, the only difference, just given that we only have so much bandwidth and we have to focus on what can keep us above water with our other parts of our business. The interesting thing for us, or I think the next chapter really, is just recognizing for our customers, maybe some fatigue with live stream in general, and just, how many Zooms they do a day, how many online things people are still pushing, and just recognizing that there's a time and a place for that. And I think what we're seeing, and I know Stephen can echo this as well, is I think the next chapter is looking more like using our venue and our platform for these nationally touring bands that are doing their own virtual concerts. So it feels like it's getting more granular and less local, which might be a cool thing, because it does to me just feel a little bit like everybody's sort of caught up to the live stream thing and there's a lot of fatigue out there. So we're kind of mindful of that. But obviously, as I mentioned, we're in a very different spot than other event producers and other venues in general. So what works for us, and what balance I should say for us needs to be struck is very different for other people. So yeah, that's kind of where we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I would echo that too. I mean, at this point with live stream, we've sort of stopped our production of our Live from Ponyboy ones, mostly for the reasons Graham is describing, as we've seen the fatigue and the viewership drop off. And it ultimately wasn't something that solves any of our problems really, outside of just maybe keeping us in people's minds, but it served that function during the core part of the shutdown. But now that we're even resuming some level of physical operation, it's more important to us to get people here.
Yeah.
And like Graham said, we're hyping a home magician stream show, and it's his thing. He's producing it, he's streaming it, but he's passing it through our website. And the wonderful thing about that is everybody's so aware, and it's like, we've talked about the ecosystem before, and the entertainment industry is so aware of all of this, that we're getting percentage of that ticket proceed,
Right.
just because we're marketing it to our audience. So we're starting to see more of that, where the artists are coming to us saying, hey, we're doing the stream. If you guys will ticket it, promote it, email blast it, whatever, you get whatever percentage. I honestly don't even know. And interesting, the other part of it is we have resumed film, and film for us is going to be something we can lean into heavier, because I can't give the actors in the film coronavirus by accident because they're not here. So there's people are more interested in sending films out. And we're actually seeing that because so many theaters are shut down. We're having better success on that front, booking interesting things, because there's so few screens operating right now that if you're a small independent theater and you've managed, like we have, to pivot into this new model, and now we have what we believe is a safe way to operate at a limited capacity for these things, we can now pick up pretty big stuff. And interestingly, so far, about 50% of those have been live concert recordings. So we're also kind of seeing a shift to that people are still wanting as much of that experience as possible. And so our screen is now on our stage. So if you come see Stevie Nicks 24 karat gold here in a couple of weeks, it'll kind of feel like you're watching Stevie Nicks on our stage at table service in a cool room. So we're really trying to like figure out what it is we can do here physically and do it really well and make that the new thing. It's not 1,000 people rocking out to whatever, but it's 200 people having some cocktails and jamming to Stevie Nicks.
Absolutely. Alexa, you, like many of the people on this meeting in general, rely on your annual budget for these fundraising events. How are you handling live stream?
So for our 12 by 12 that we just had last Friday, we created a live stream component to be embedded in that app in Handbid, so people could watch a video as they were watching the auction. And that really helped explain the need for this virtual fundraiser to go well for our organization, because 12 by 12 really raises the money that we give back to artists in grants. And so if we hadn't reached our goal, we wouldn't be able to do all the things that we've done in the years past. And so with that live stream, it was really supplementary. And we had that embedded in the app for the auction, but we also streamed it on Facebook and YouTube. So it was everywhere. We didn't use it as, a ticketed event or anything. It was basically a way to explain what we were doing and why we needed to do it, and how the community could help. And so that video was actually created in partnership with the House Helps, and they're a nonprofit organization that outsources video production. And it wasn't all this, dark, gloomy, oh my goodness, what are we doing in this pandemic? There were fun parts. Actually, we got to go to the Jones, and our favorite bartender, Charles, created some amazing cocktails. And so that was a part of the video too. And we kind of just try to be lighthearted in a way that's hard to do that. And so by having these segments, it really tried to keep people engaged for the full hour of the video. And then after it launched, they could replay it. And so that's how we approach live stream in terms of our virtual fundraiser.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you all for those tips. I know I'm glad we have this on record, because I need like a pencil to write down all of these for my own organization. We normally just go an hour for Power Hour. We normally have a closing for our members. We're going to kind of skip through that so we can do one last question with all our panelists. We've got 9 minutes left, and I think we can do it. So a couple of you have touched on this a little bit already, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about what you think the future of events looks like for your organization, and how everyone on this call and all of our networks can help you and support you in this time. Emily, I'd love to start with you in the Oklahoma City Chamber.
Yeah, so I don't know what the future of events is going to look like. I mean, a year from now, who knows? I know that our next step after polling a lot of our members is to do kind of the hybrid events, like some of you all have already been doing. I think, Lydia, you said the Cowboys done some of those. Some people that are comfortable being in person, do that, keep them socially distanced, but then stream for the people that aren't. I think, to help support us. So, you know, the Convention and Visitors Bureau brings in so much money for Oklahoma City, tax-wise. So if you know of anyone that, you know, a professional organization or anything like that that needs a place to meet, you know, we have this new convention center opening that overlooks Scissortail Park. It's just a great representation of Oklahoma City and how far we've come. And then also just support each other, you know, support Towers, support the Jones, support all of our museums, support, you know, organizations like OVAC that make this community what it is. And I think if we do that and all keep that in mind, we'll get through it. A little bruised and battered on the other side, but we will.
Lydia, how can we help, and what do you think your future looks like at the museum?
So I really do think that we're all craving and just wanting that social interaction that we used to have with events. And I feel for 2021, very much what Stephen said earlier and Graham, that it's kind of a wash already. I really don't think that events will get back to the large scale till probably 2022. But for now, I think hybrid is truly the future, and it's safe. We can social distance, and those people who really do feel comfortable, masked, washing hands, sanitizing, all of that, all of those things are fine with still meeting in person. And the ones that don't feel comfortable or don't have the health to meet in person can still experience it through the fun and exciting things through streaming. And I think with the hybrid events, what's really important is to have those components to the event that are still fun for people in person and for people at home. So like the trivia, we've had some clients do special prizes for those watching at home that aren't in person. So just things along those lines. And I think the events industry has always been super creative and full of wonderful people with great ideas. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I just think it's different. And we just need to all kind of pull together and make it through.
Thank you. Alexa, how about you all in OVAC?
Yes, we are, again, continuing to pivot as 2021 kind of unfolds. Our Momentum program, which will be in the spring, has already changed from that weekend-long event to a month-long event in Norman, and then a month-long event in Tulsa, to kind of, you know, get more people involved, more people in front of art that can see it in a way that's not in a crowd of 1,500 people. So we will continue to change those things and to do hybrid, again, virtual, along with in-person things like our annual members meeting that will probably be next summer in a way that is also a hybrid event. And so I also think that partnerships during this time is one of the most important things that we can do. Like, we are the people of Oklahoma City in this meeting, and I'm so glad that you invited OVAC to be here today, but we've got to continue to know what we're all doing and trying to share these virtual events, because we have our own audiences, but it's never going to reach all the other people that we aren't reaching ourselves without the help of the people in this chat. So I think just helping to share, helping to create new partnerships in the midst of so much, you know, darkness and in these kind of weird times is really important. And so that's been one of the silver linings, I think, for OVAC, is we didn't know how to do a live stream. And so we figured out all of these other people that could help us. And now they're our new friends. And now we can, you know, give their information to all of you. So that's kind of the beauty of this community. And that's one of the best things about being in Oklahoma City, is that we are a friendly city. And thank goodness I am here right now. So that's, yeah, we're just kind of gonna roll with the punches just like everybody else and hope for the best.
Thank you. We needed a little pep talk in there. I appreciate the positivity. Graham and Stephen, let's end with you all. And for everyone listening, Carrie Sauer has put some links, resources from what Stephen was mentioning earlier for the Save Our Stages movement, how you can contact legislation. So all of that is included in the chat. if you're interested, and we can email that out to anyone who needs it as well. You both, Stephen and Graham, have mentioned how we can help you. Is there anything else you'd like to add in closing?
Yeah, for me, I think what it looks like ahead is I'm optimistic that after this year is over, we all want this year to be over. So I think there's going to be a natural appetite to do more regardless of the vaccine. I just think that, especially here in Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, I think you're going to see a lot of people have a sense of urgency once this dang year is over to get out there and do stuff. So I think it's up to us in our own unique ways as event producers that have different buildings and facilities that we work in to lean into what we can and can't do safely. But I do think you're going to see, starting even in January, I think you're going to see people want to start doing more regardless of where we are with the vaccine. I could be completely ignorant saying that, but I just kind of think that that's what's going to unfold. So for us, we've started to look at events a little differently. We just did an event that we put on called the County Fair, which was really just a state fair kind of riff, knowing that we could do that. You know, we have the outdoor space, we have a big window to serve food out of. But what we did is we started it on Tuesday and it ran to Sunday instead of our usual one big blowout day. Obviously, we can do that in our space. So we're going to continue to try to lean into that and find the right balance in terms of safety of how we think our building and our facility can keep people safe. But I would be totally lying if I said that's not a daily struggle of how much or how little we really can do. Because we serve a lot of different people with a lot of different views, and we don't know. So we're just going to continue to try to lean into what we think we can do safely. And I think I can speak for Stephen, and everyone here, of course, when our brand is so important to us and our reputation. You know, you see a lot of venues that have done recent large concerts. And that's their choice. And the people that attend those events, that's their choice as well. Stephen and I, and again, I can't speak for the other panelists, but I think I can speak for Stephen. We've chosen to not do that. And that's because we care about our building, we care about our people, we care about our staffs, we care about what we're putting out there, and we're not always going to do it right. But I think the next year, and as it unfolds, I think you'll start to see us use our creativity, because that's what got us all into this business, and that's what's going to get us out of this crazy time, is creativity, just continuing to just scratch and claw our way through this thing. So we may not get it perfect, but I think you're going to start seeing some enthusiasm in the new year for some physical things as people gain a little bit more comfort, more knowledge, more expertise coming through, vaccine on the horizon. I'm optimistic. I am.
Yeah, I'd echo Graham on that point, and absolutely what he was saying earlier when he said he was speaking for me was 100% on point. We made that decision very early on. We've said this over and over again in our promotions of Save Our Stages. We were the first to close and the last to reopen, and I intend to uphold that, because I think that's what it's going to take to be safe. I don't consider us reopen per se at this point. Reopening in my mind is our normal operation, which, you know, I shared this stat during a press conference. We had, in 2019, we did an average of, I think what did I say it was, like 1.2 events a day in 2019, because we stack so much stuff. And so to go from that pace to a pace of 0, we have an insanely amazing group of creative people that work here. And they are musicians, they are photographers, they are videographers, they are event planners, they are marketing and PR brains, they are all the brains you need to run something like this. So it's also that perfect group of people that like take this, it's Legos, right? We just broke the Lego thing that we spent 3 years building. All the pieces are still there. Build something new out of it. What do we have? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And so we've gotten that mentality with, so we're doing our own programming, like I mentioned, the concerts and the films and stuff we're doing. The other thing I'll say, because you asked the question of what else would you want, what I want you to know is we have also completely changed the way we're thinking about events. To Graham's point, we have a 3-week-long art show being set up in the lobby next month. Somebody is renting our we have a beautiful long white hallway that when I started this, I looked at and go, and the only thought I could think of to not make it a hospital was to put a picture rail on it. And so we put a picture rail, we have a hanging system, and we've always done various art components to some of our shows. So we're renting that out to a group for that. We had a rental coming up this week that was literally an hour long in the middle of the day, and we charged a couple $100 for it to like have a staffer there and like turn the lights on and turn a microphone or something on for like a press conference for somebody. The positive spin on losing all of these concerts and no longer being able to operate at the pace of 1.2 events per day is that we now have all this time and we can be a lot more flexible with it. So that's what's working for us in film is they want longer runs. They want to see their film on the screen 4, 5, 6 times a week, whatever. We can now offer those things. We can offer a 3-week rental of the lobby. We can offer a 1-hour rental on a Friday afternoon because we don't have a band loading in that night where before we couldn't have done that. So we're also extremely optimistic about the post situation. And I agree with Graham. I think just because of the cycle of everything that's going on now, from New Year to election and new people in various offices, I think the first of the year is people are going to kind of know what's in store for them now. They've gotten the idea of the pandemic and what their lives are like. They know how these things are operating. Now we know who our leadership changes are and what direction things are going to start going from that front. So they'll start to try to find that true new normal, and going out will be a part of that. We were hesitant when the Oklahoma graphs were like way down here. Now they're way over here and we're like reopening. So even we've changed our mindset of like, at the beginning of this, a few hundred cases in the metro was the scariest thing on the planet. And now we're like, oh, we're, just a few thousand a day or whatever. We've all had to kind of cope with that. So we're looking at 2021 as the opportunity to hopefully get some support from the federal level and survive. And if we survive, we still want to be active. We're not just going to turn the lights off and sit on some stimulus money or whatever and ride it out and all take vacations. We're going to say, okay, we can breathe for 2021. Let's lean into what we can do. We know what our strengths are. We know what our weaknesses are. And we know to what level we're willing to operate and what risks we're willing to take. So to that part, I would say if you are looking for spaces, places, and resources on putting on an event, whether it's hybrid, whether it's physical, whether it's virtual, whether it's some pie in the sky thing that you've thought about for years and it never made sense until now, there's about 6 things a week we come up with going, oh yeah, we had that idea 2 years ago and it would never have worked back then, but now it'll work. So we start revisiting that stuff. So dust out your mothball corners of your brain and those weird ideas you've had for years. Maybe now is the time to do that, because honestly, I think once people start looking for things to do, they'll be looking for anything and the most interesting, weird thing possible. If it's wrapped in that, you're mindful, you're safe, you're thinking about it. We're not pretending like this isn't a thing. We all know it's a real thing now. So let's operate inside those confines and figure out how to get back to life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for everyone who is here today. I know a bunch of people have left in the comments. Just thank you so much.